I am your hostess for this evening, and my name is Marilyn Carter, Director of Community Services and Outreach. Working behind the scenes is our own Hayden Green, who is the Director of the Multicultural Center. Tonight, we have four dynamic people who will speak about owning their own business, how that came about, and the ups and downs of owning and operating a business, especially during COVID. So sit back, relax, as I introduce my guests. First up, we have Miss Melba Wilson, owner and operator of Melba's world famous restaurant in Harlem. I've eaten there many times. If you want Southern food or comfort food, this is the place to go. After working at Sylvia's and Windows of the World, Miss Wilson decided that she could own and operate her own business. Besides operating her own business, she is very well versed in working with the Hospitality Alliance. And in 2019, she was elected as their president. In addition, along with others, she has set up a COVID-19 employee relief fund for hourly workers in the business. Their goal is to raise $250,000 for financial relief. Welcome, Ms. Wilson, to Manhattan College. Next on hand, you're welcome. Next on hand, we have Ms. Leisha Grimes, who is the proud owner of Elevated Minds, which is a counseling and mental health center. Ms. Grimes is a psychotherapist and hails from Utica, New York, and practices in the Delaware, Maryland location. A warm Jasper welcome to you. Next, we have Ms. Donnie Boston Hill, who is the owner and operator of Keeper of the Brand, which is a brand content provider. She started her career in marketing and event production at Madison Square Garden, Kiss FM, and Hot 97, to name a few. This should be a good conversation for our business students. Last but not least, we have Mr. France Metellus, the proud owner of Rustic Bar and Tavern. He believes in catering to the Brooklyn community, and he does this by maintaining partnerships with schools, nonprofits, and local politicians. Mr. Metellus attended law school at Rutgers University. Good evening, everyone. So now that we've introduced all of you and the business ventures that you are in, I hope to have a round discussion discussing many different things, the different aspects of owning your business. We have 5 schools at Manhattan College. One of them is the School of Business. And so we have a lot of questions that we think we can inform our students about owning their business, or, maybe just being a business major. So the first question that I'd like for each of you to provide us with your thoughts on is, explain to the audience why you wanted to own a business and why did you choose the business that you're in?
Well, I wanted to own a business because I'm actually born, bred, and buttered in the village of Harlem. And it was important for me to provide opportunities for people within my community. For a long period of time, people looked at Harlem as a ghetto. And me being one of the people that Harlem actually raised me and taught me so much about life, I wanted to showcase Harlem in a totally different light. My family hails from Hemingway, South Carolina, a very, very small town. And everything that we did was done over food. Food was a common denominator in our household. Every story that was told, every history lesson, learning about my great-great-grandparents and where they came from. Every important aspect of our life happened over food. I wanted to be able to share that with a community that I love, that I'm born and raised in, and that I still live in. And what better way to do that than leading by example? I don't know if I chose food or if food chose me, but here we are, and it's been a wonderful 18-year marriage.
Wonderful. Ms. Grimes, I think you're next.
So for me, I grew up in upstate New York, and honestly, I did not see many Black business owners. I grew up in an area of upstate New York that was not very privileged, that was not very fortunate. And why I chose mental health, seeing the struggles of the community that I was in and always getting the negative things that they say would come out of quote unquote the hood. Um, so I wanted to change that narrative. I wanted to be an example that regardless of your environment or your circumstances, you can do and be whatever it is you want to do. And so that brought me into opening my mental health practice with also retiring from the Army. And so that aided me in being able to help me open my practice. And so mental health is very near and dear. Me being a psychotherapist, I'm not immune. So I had my own mental health issues, which even pushed me more to really want to help people who look like me because I couldn't find someone who looked like me or who could relate to me. And so that motivated me to want to broaden my practice in mental health and reach as many populations as I can.
Thank you. Next up, I think we have Ms. Hill.
Hi, everyone. So my journey started actually when I entered grad school at NYU. I wanted to start a production company, and that was really my outlet. I was focused on just being, content creation, and going into grad school thinking, you know, I can do it all. Do I need to go, and conquer corporate America at that time? And I was working full time at Madison Square Garden and then over to Kiss FM. And I said, you know what? Let me start this business. And then corporate America actually took over. You're producing events and you're 24/7 grinding for a company. And then you fast forward, I walked into a radio station at 22 years old and I walked out married, 2 children, experiencing a major merger, and who was going to hire me pregnant, 6 months pregnant, going through a merger. And I think I was forced into my truth, where I said, I'm going to start my own business. I'm not going to wait for someone to decide if I'm going to put food on the table for my family. I can do this. So I did. I launched my company in 2014. In March of 2014, I put in the paperwork. Everything came back that June. And Ralph McDaniels gave me my first client. So I knew there was a sign. And because of digital and social media, I was able to spread the word and never look back.
Wonderful. Mr. Metellus?
So for me, I think I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. Funny enough, when I went to law school, I decided early that it wasn't my thing to litigate. I just wanted to learn transactional law and deal with business transactions and real estate and things like that. It wasn't about going to the court and defending anyone. I didn't want to do that. So when I graduated law school, I started practicing the areas of business law and real estate. And, I think the restaurant was a nice segue into that, because the thing for me was always trying to fulfill a need. And at the time, I realized that the neighborhood didn't have a place like Rustic for people to go to. There was young working professionals in the neighborhood, and we were looking for somewhere to go. So it just made sense. So I built it, and 13 years later, we're there.
You just built it, huh? That's wonderful to know. So my next question was to each of you, was this a hard venture to strike out on your own, especially to those who are in the food services industry or hospitality? You name it. I mean, I've had a couple of businesses and that, all they did was take my paycheck, and I had a young daughter, and it was whether to buy the formula or, pay the oil or gas bill. So I know there are many hardships that come with, owning your own business. So why don't we talk a little bit about that? Was it hard to strike out on your own?
It was definitely one of the hardest things I've ever done. Um, as we all know, the restaurant industry is one of the toughest, if not the toughest industry to be in. Profit margins are slim, if any, and between thievery and waste and mismanagement of funds, it's a very difficult business to run. But I decided I had a mentor when I was about 11 years old by the name of Ophelia DeVore. And Ophelia DeVore changed my life. She literally changed my life. Um, Ophelia DeVore started the Grace Del Marco modeling agency. Everyone from Diane Carroll to Sue Simmons went through her agency. And at 16 years old, she was in a Vogue modeling class. She was also from South Carolina. And a brown skinned girl walked in one day and they said, "I'm sorry, we don't teach Blacks." Miss DeVore had no clue that they did not know that she was Black. And she started her own modeling agency. And like I said, everybody from Diane Carroll to Sue Simmons and Cecilia Cooper, the first Black Miss France Cannes Film Festival, and so many others, Cecily Tyson, so many other amazing women went through the ranks and were mentored by Ophelia DeVore. I was lucky enough when I was 11 to actually, my cousin worked there. So I would go with my cousin on Saturdays to work and I would lick envelopes. I would go in the beauty bar. I would sell makeup. And that's where I learned that anything I wanted to do, I could do. And Miss DeVore poured into me. And I think that as youngsters, we need those mentors. Of course, your family, they always believe in you. But when you have those other people that are your extended family, not just telling you, but showing you what you can do. My cousin, Dr. Sampson Davis from the Three Doctors, often says, "You cannot be what you cannot see." So, me seeing Miss DeVore making a difference and employing Black and Brown people showed me that I could do anything I wanted to do. But it was still one of the hardest things I had ever done. I was on a flight and I heard the flight attendant say, "In case of an emergency, put on your mask first." And I looked at my life and I had been putting on everybody else's mask. And I said to myself, I didn't want to wake up one day and go, "What about me? What about me?" I was married at the time, had a young child as well. Um, but my mom and dad, they're both from the South. My mother used to always put money under the mattress. So what did I do? I put money under the mattress too. And after I got off the flight that day, I said, I'm going to look and see how much money I have saved up. And I had amassed a small fortune, which took me over a week to count. And it was $312,000. And that is what I used to invest in Melba's. And I chose 114th Street and 8th Avenue because that was one of the most notorious drug blocks in Harlem.
I went to school over there, Watley Junior High School,
So
baby.
you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. And Miss Grimes, thank you so much for your service. But like you too, I wanted to be the change. I wanted to promote change within my community. And so I took a chance on me. But was it hard? It was definitely hard. You don't know what you don't know until you don't know it, until you get into it, right? Thought I knew it all. Been working in this industry for years. It's totally different when you are owning something and when you have to write every check for every situation that you did not anticipate was going to happen. Does what? Happens. Um, Totally different. Totally different. There were so many times that I can tell you my bills got paid, my employees got paid, but guess who didn't get paid? Me. Me. you know? But I got a PhD in entrepreneurship. I got a PhD in learning how to overcome, how to conquer. And one of the things that I did was, I go back to Harriet Tubman. I say, I walk out of the doors of Melba's and I look to my right, and there is a statue, there's a monument, a memorial to Frederick Douglass. And then I look to my left, and there's another memorial, and that is to the one and only Harriet Tubman. And in those tough days, I look to the left and I look to the right, And I said, if Miss Tubman can build an underground railroad, I won't complain.
All right.
And
Very
that's what
good.
gets me through. That is what gets me through.
Mhm. Hard work, understanding, and looking at those that came before you. Ms. Grimes, how are you doing? Can you tell us why you came out into the mental health area and counseling and trying to help those who need it?
Absolutely. So as I stated before, I suffered from mental health illness. Presently still do, it's just not as severe. I still go as a therapist. I go to my own therapist and get my maintenance and my checkups. And I had to learn that I have to create mental space for myself in order to create the mental space for my patients. That way I'm giving them the best care that I can give to them. And so a lot of times that's a hard decision because that means canceling patient appointments. And I don't necessarily want to cancel my patient's appointments, but I realize that I have to take care. I realize that I have to take care of me. And so from my childhood, I left home at the age of 15. I've been on my own since the age of 15. Going to the military was something of, I don't want to go to school anymore. I don't want to play basketball anymore. I don't want to run track anymore. I just want to get out of New York and get far away as possible. Well, my first duty station was Hawaii. It was
Mm.
pretty far um, from New York, but I learned so much. And a lot of times people think the military sets you up for this big success. The reality is they didn't teach us finances. They didn't teach us how to manage our money. I was living paycheck to paycheck. We get paid pennies compared to the amount of work that we do. I have multiple deployments being in Iraq and Afghanistan. So just the mental wear down, not just the physical. A lot of times, even military just saw just the physical. And I've witnessed soldiers attempt suicides, myself included. And it got to the point after my attempt, I realized I'm still here for a reason. And I became a huge advocate in the military for suicide, which I even helped the Army create a program which they actually still use to this day to help add more gatekeepers within the Army communities, no matter what base that you were at, to help those soldiers get treated like human beings instead of saying, let me get your shoestrings and send someone to watch you. So I helped somewhat change that culture in the units that I was in and was able to implement that throughout Army worldwide. So that made me dig deep into getting into mental health, which means I had to dig deep into me. And that's not easy to face yourself in the mirror, as most people will think it is. Honey, I had some things going on that I needed to clear up. And so going through school, we have a saying that you become your first patient. I think I diagnosed myself with everything in that diagnostic manual. I'm like, yep, that's me. Yep, that's me. Yep. And so you really, really, truly start to dig deep in who you are. And that's an emotional roller coaster. You face all those things that people said you wouldn't become, and you start to believe those things. So it's undoing a lot of the things from your entire life when you reach that point. And then being in the military, I still work on the counseling side. So I'm thinking, oh, I do this in the military, all the issues and things I see there. Doing this once I get out is going to be a breeze. Boy, did I lie to myself. One is federal, the other is state. I had to comply with so many different laws that I didn't even know. So it was almost like re-educating myself. I ended up coming out of pocket. I don't think my first 6 months, I didn't make any money for me. Everything was going into the business, and I started questioning, man, I don't know if I want to do this because I still have to live. Yeah, I'm retiring, but that check is only going to cover but so much. And what ended up happening was someone sent me an article that was written on me when I was 16-year-old. I want to say a junior in high school. And in that article, I stated that I wanted to help the community change their mindsets so they can change their outlook. And that connected everything back. And I'm like, wow, this is 16-year-old me. And here I am about 18 years later, and I'm in this field. I then realized my vision and my purpose, not only my passion, had all aligned. And so when I have those emotional days, when money wasn't coming in, I wasn't getting patience. People didn't want to talk to me because I was Black. I was like, oh, no, I didn't think she was going to be the therapist. They thought I was the secretary. They thought I was administrative. And they're like, no, that's your therapist. Oh, I want to see someone else. So people didn't want to see me because of what I look like. As much confidence as I had, that's a dagger. It really makes you feel like, sheesh, all the things that I went through and what I'm willing to help this individual with, they don't want to come see me because of what I look like. And then working at agencies that abuse you, that because I have a great work ethic, I will have 40 patients and realize my white counterparts were getting paid way more than me, and they had a caseload of 10. And so I'm like, wait a minute, this cannot be life. And so those things pushed me to go further into my own practice. Say, you know what? I'm working this hard for you. I can work this hard for myself. And was it easy? No, 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 no. But I can say where I thought I would be in a year in my practice, I was there in 3 months. In 3 months, no marketing, no advertising. It had to be just people who knew me. I started getting contracts with the schools and in the counties that I'm in. And I was just like, wait a minute, what? It started becoming so much. I'm like, I gotta hire some people. I can't do this by myself. And then that allowed me to branch out. So it's a very, very emotional journey. Even though I've been open going on 4 years now, I still look back. I still read an article that was written on me when I was 15 because it's an emotional journey and it's not easy. You're going to be broke before you have a little bit of change in your pocket. And even then, every time you elevate a level, more problems come with that. So
Yes. I'm going to turn to Ms. Hill and Mr. Metellus, and I'm going to get to that funding because people are, say they have visions. I want to do this, I want to do that, but then they don't have that plan to say, how am I going to go about getting the funding for this? And so if any of our business students are listening or watching this presentation, I want to talk about that funding aspect. But Ms. Hill, going back to the original question is, why did you decide to strike out in this particular area?
Yeah, I think I was at a point at a crossroads in my career, whether I was going back into corporate America or I was going to take a chance and bet on myself. And I decided, after speaking with my husband and my family and looking at my 401k and my finances, that I was going to bet on me. I watched a TV show and I saw a commercial from Kathy Hughes, and it was for a documentary. And she said when she started her radio stations in DC, she slept on the floor. And she stayed overnight, and they were going to kick her out. And I said, I can do this. I'm here running someone else's business, and I'm gonna bet on me. So I did. When I bet on myself, I left the company and I started to look at the portfolio that I was building for someone else's business and all the commission that the salespeople were gaining off of the ideas that I was generating. And I said, we're going to start this engine. And I went from, I call it the subliminal driving a Lamborghini when you're working in corporate America to driving a Kia in your real life, right? So you're driving a Kia and you're building this new company, but how are you going to make that engine rev faster and generate money and hire staff? And I didn't know where to start. And I went to a meeting at the African American Museum in Hempstead, New York. And I looked on the wall. It was happened to be Black History Month. And they had the faces of men around the wall. And I looked up and one of the men were standing in front of my face. And I said, oh my goodness, that's you. And he said, yes. And we started talking and he said, his name was Rick. And he said, you have a business, you need to be minority woman owned certified. And he told me that his company was over $1 million. He did import and export with his wife. And he said it may cost you $300 to join and get certified. And I said, oh, $300? I'm in, no problem. And I went that very day and started to get every certification from New York City, New York State, MSDC, WeBank. And I knew what I found, that it wasn't going to happen overnight, I kept getting signs from people from when I started to give up or doubt myself. And I call it my roller coaster journey and my ride that I'm sure the other entrepreneurs feel all the time, that there's always a sign or something that tells you to keep going. And that was for me, that I would run into these signs that said, keep going. And after being certified for like 6 months, I scored my first government contract, my 5-year government contract. So this is how your signs keep happening. So you score that first government contract and they tell you it's so hard to get, and you win that. And then you fast forward, you're in the middle of the contract, and the president of the United States shuts down the government. And then you continue to move on, and then your business is growing, and then you hit the pandemic, because my first government contract was focused on digital for the armed services. And then he shut that down, right? So I'm still working and completing the contract and trying to be the best I can be. And I said, I'm going to change my portfolio. So at the time, my portfolio was 70% digital, 30% live events. Now, my background is in marketing and production, as I mentioned before, but I said, oh, government shutdown, let me change the portfolio. Following year, 2019, I go in, I shift the portfolio. We're going to do 60% or 70% live events, 30% digital. And I started producing the Harlem Fine Arts Show. I also started producing Bethpage Polo at the Park. So full on, full press live events, hiring staff. And then when you mention hospitality, you know, when you start working with the polo field and you take over their house, you know, I was doing everything. So it was marketing, production, hospitality, handling the catering. And then I wanted something for myself. So I secured the license to an event called Dinner en Blanc, which is the all-white pop-up dinner here on Long Island, and I brought it to Long Island. So that's all 100% hospitality. And then I was blessed again and secured a contract with Essence Festival to handle VIP and hospitality. And then the pandemic hits. So I'm like, every time I make a shift,
You gotta make another one.
something else happened. So now I'm back to shifting the portfolio again. So when you talk about hospitality, that's full, you know, restaurants is easy for people to walk in, but events, we don't have, you know, concert venues are closed down or shut down. Unfortunately, in New York State, you can't assemble, whether even if it's really outside over 200 people. My events are all 1,500 to 2,000 plus attendees. So it was really hard, but I know that, you know, there's always a shift, and those shifts allow me to keep pushing forward. So, and what I've learned is that there's always people, either other entrepreneurs like myself and everyone on this panel, or organizations like the SBA or Small Business Services and some of the other organizations that I mentioned, economic development corporations, that our people are there to help you if they know you believe in yourself and you're going to push forward. And so I did. I kept going through. I'm keeping a good head on my shoulder and keeping, you know, my head straight to push forward. And I am 100% into the digital realm right now and content creation, but I can't wait to get back to live events and hospitality. Melba, we were at your restaurant with the Vera Moore show a few years ago, and it's just like that one-to-one connection is really, you know, really tough for people, especially those, you know, people in the restaurant business. So Franz, I'll hand it over to you, because I know that's your cup of tea, and we look forward to just continuing to get through this pandemic.
Thank you. France?
So yeah, I guess I want to just echo everybody else's sentiments. You know, business by itself is hard, but the restaurant business tends to be extremely hard, especially now. And you ask what kind of keeps us going, and I kind of want to steal a couple of words from President Obama. It's that audacity of hope. And I think everybody else echoed the same sentiments. It's that shit, excuse me, but tomorrow will be better. And tomorrow will be better. We can do it this way. We can do it that way. This will happen. And that entrepreneurial spirit starts to take over. See, what tends to happen with me is when there's a wall, I got to find a way over it.
Right.
I got to find a way over it. If I don't find a way over it, well, I'm going to die trying to find a way over it. And that's how it goes. But yeah, this industry is extremely difficult. I don't, a lot of people ask, hey, should we get into it? I tell them no. And people laugh when I tell them no, but this is not an industry to come into if you need to make money. If you want to make money, you can find a lot of other things to do because it's entirely too hard. And the chances of really making a decent living is tough. I tell most people, like Melba said a minute ago, margins are slim. Margins are 5%. So if you do $1 million in sales, you as the owner, you're walking away with 50 grand. And people don't really realize that. All that work, 100 hours a week, and you're walking away with 50 grand. So we do this for something other than money, right? We do it because our spirit pushes us to. That's it.
I want to say thank you. And the part B to that question was actually talking about some of the things that you guys have already said. And that initially is the funding, whereby a lot of people, they have hopes and they have dreams, but they do not know how to secure funding. Besides having $300,000 underneath our mattress, Miss Melba. So, I mean, how did the rest of you and Miss Hill? You said you were fortunate to have a government contract, but I'll just throw that out. How do you go about letting these young people that are listening go and find the funding? I know for many different things, you've got to do your research, just like you're in school. If you want a business, you have to do the research on it in terms of, we watch a lot of television and this culture, we can be whatever we want to be, but the reality of the situation, you have to research what you want to do. You have to get the information, and you have to have people that are there on your side to assist you. And so, when someone opens up a restaurant or a bar, a mental health, a PR firm, and you see those lights going off like a Hollywood sign, it takes everything that you have in order to make that work. And I think one of the things that we were trying to instill within our students here at Manhattan College, that no matter what it is hard work.
Yeah.
To further that question, have any of you hit that wall when you've said, that's it, I've had enough? We are going through the pandemic and lots of people are losing their businesses and they're having their own emotional struggles. Did you hit that wall where you've said, you know what, enough is enough?
I think being Black and female and being in business, that wall is always there. And as Franz said, when you see that wall, there's something in our spirit, there's something in our ancestry that tells us we have to go over it, around it, through it, or under it, but we're going to conquer it. I always go back to our ancestors because, my first trip to Africa was in 1993, and my life was forever changed. I understood why we as a people do so many different things. And it all has to do with from whence we've come. Have we hit that wall? Definitely. But I have 39 full-time employees that depend on me. And so, with all due respect, and I think I can speak for the other panelists, there's always some type of pandemic for us, being Black entrepreneurs. The lack of access to capital is a huge one. I mean, let's talk about the pandemic and the PPP loans. I mean, I'm in Harlem, there are lots of churches, so I got to do a little preaching here on this subject. I've been open 18 years, banking with the same bank. However, on that Monday, when the application came out for the first round of PPPs, and my CFO, who's had 17 plus years in commercial banking, sent it in the same day it came out. That Monday, that Thursday, we had not heard anything from this bank that we had, let's say, lots of money in. On that Thursday, we did get a call from a CDFI True Fund. And Steve Barrios called and said, Melba, have you gotten funded for PPP? And of course, me being the president of the New York City Hospitality Alliance, everyone was calling me, find it, Melba, what's going on, da-da-dee-da-da-da. 4 days had passed and we hadn't gotten funded. And we all know that the funding was on a first come, first served basis. And that meant that when the money ran out, it was gone. My bank said, we need some more information. Well, we took that same application and sent it into True Fund. Within 5 hours, we weren't funded, but we were approved for the loan. So that was interesting. So with that, and I found out that my situation was not unusual to Black and Hispanic owned businesses. And I won't call us minority because there's nothing minor about us. Okay. But my situation, unfortunately, was all too common. I definitely bank someplace else now. But lack of access to capital was a big thing. So are there times that I feel like throwing in the waffle? Of course there is. But I've come too far. I've come too far. And it's so not about me. It's about legacy building. It's about the people in our community. It's about the people in the communities like Harlem around the world. And it's about the young people. They depend on us. And I think it's important, for them to know that if I can, so can you. If I can, you can too. We're gatekeepers, whether we want to be or not. Miss Hill, Miss Grimes, Mr. Franz, Miss Carter. We are gatekeepers. And there are so many people that depend on us and that look to us for guidance. And we have the torch. And it's our duty, our privilege, and an honor for us to lead.
Thank you. Very well said. Ms. Grimes?
Is there a wall that we hit? Absolutely. But I will say, I think all of the experience that I've gone through in regards to my mental health practice and just mental health in general and my experience in life, it's one thing that I've learned is that sometimes, which can be a lot of the times, we don't go through things for ourselves. We go through things for other people. And so with my experience in childhood, with my experience in the military, some will say I learned the hard way, but it was everything I needed to go through to realize I may not be doing anything wrong. So I had to stop questioning, why are these things happening to me? And so I always think of that, you know what? This is going to help me help somebody else. And so I like to rephrase and rethink of it when I hit that wall is if I got to go over it, if I got to go around it, if I got to dig a hole till I get underneath it, I'm going to get to the other side because there's somebody on the other side that may need me. And one of my key things when I say that somebody may be myself. It's just not the clients that I serve. Sometimes when we get these nice positions that we get, so many people do depend on us. but then we forget about ourselves because we're always taking care of everyone else. And so sometimes that brick wall meant, Leisha, you gotta sit down. You're not getting over this wall until you take care of you. And once I'm able to take care of me, now I can continue to water those who depend on me. So when the pandemic hit, one, mental health is already a crisis in underprivileged communities. And those are the communities that I serve. While I do have other communities with athletes and things, I wasn't too concerned about my athletes. I was concerned about those underprivileged communities. So it's already a crisis before the pandemic. Then the pandemic hit. Guess what? Everybody wanted mental health. And while I love that, man, oh man, I was working 18 and a half hour days of seeing patients. I was seeing patients sometimes at 4 a.m. because that's when I can fit the patient in. On top of completing my dissertation, on top of running a practice, on top of my mentorship program, on top of dealing with grief in my own family, on top of dealing with the grief I was feeling from the world and what was happening to the Black community. All those things were weighing down on me to the point I don't consider myself a crier, but man, I literally was on my knees crying, but I realized I needed to water my garden. So those tears water my garden. That helped me continue to water other people. And so, yes, you will hit that brick wall. But I think we need to decipher, is it I need to go and depend on me? Or do I need to go meet the needs of those who depend on me? And you can't take care of anyone else until you take care of yourself. Now, what that may look like is different for every last one of us. But last year, I hardly ever don't schedule patients. I was blessed to not see patients for a total of about 3 months if I calculated for the whole year. I still somehow managed to beat all of my projected numbers. How that happened, I don't really even know. But I was worried about taking that time for me, but I did it. And by doing it, it also showed myself I was in a better place to take better care of my employees. My employees had a better place to take care of their patients. And everybody was good all the way around. My patients calmed down. I didn't have to do those 4 a.m. calls because it was tough. I'm no longer a morning person. I'm kind of a rebel since getting out of the military. I don't want to get up early in the morning anymore. So yes, we will hit that brick wall. But again, sometimes the things we go through is not for ourselves. It's going to equip us with the tools to take care of whatever it is our purpose and our passion is. And so you have to keep pushing through, but stop and take that knee when you need it.
Thank you. Michelle?
So in marketing, you have KPIs, that's key performance indicators. And at our Keeper of the Brand team, we always discuss you have one day to celebrate a win, you have one day to cry.
Mm.
In doing so, you have to keep pushing forward, right? So that's one day to celebrate, one day to cry, and keep moving forward. And I'll share with you 2 quick stories. I produced Dinner en Blanc my first year, 2017. I had 2,500 people register in about a month and a half. I hired out another minority owned business, and we had 22 buses, and of the 22, 2 to 3 buses were either late or did not show up. And I'll tell you, because no one knew who the bus company was. They knew Keeper of the Brand and Dinner en Blanc, Long Island. So at that point, I cried, I was upset, and I picked myself up and kept moving. So that was my first brick wall. And I had to say to myself, and I went back to my hip hop days and I said, if P. Diddy can produce a concert at City College and someone died and he kept going forward, or they were hurt and they kept going forward, then I can produce this event where no one was hurt and no one died because a few buses were late, and I'm going to keep pushing forward. So that was the first time. And now we're going into our 4th season. The second time was when I was so excited about being a minority woman-owned certified business and starting to pitch subcontracting work for a major advertising company. And there was a woman-owned business out in California who was losing the business, and they wanted me to hire her so me being the prime and hire this other company from a Caucasian woman that was a they wanted me to subcontract her into the business to so I can prove that I can do the business. Now the business was radio trafficking for a major sweepstakes company that if I mentioned it, you would all know who it is. Right. So interviewing this woman on the phone, I thought I was interviewing her. She's actually interviewing me, asking me, oh, if they pay you, how are you going to pay me? And I'm thinking, well, that's none of your concern. I'm interviewing you because I'm the prime and you're the sub. She went back to the agency and said, well, I went to Dun and Bradstreet and her business is out of her home. Right? Because at the time, I started at my dining room table. I had an office that, one of the virtual offices, and we were still getting our footing. And I thought it was not necessary for me to, pay for all this overhead. So she did a lot of digging and I did not get the contract. And I was so upset. I contacted New York State, Empire State Development, just for some mentoring. I was speaking to some folks there. And I didn't want to make waves, but I was really, really down on myself. And then I went to LinkedIn one day and Damon John did a post, and he said, Apple started in his garage. Disney started their company in their garage. Amazon, now is $1 billion company, started in his garage and at his dining room table. And at that point, I said, why am I upset? Because I started my company at my dining room table. Never again will I let someone else make me feel inferior. And you fast forward to where we are today, 100% of America is working at their dining room table. So when you find that brick wall, as everyone else said, you keep pushing forward and you keep moving your agenda ahead. Whatever your goal and your purpose in life will be, you will always have roadblocks, but bettering yourself and believing in yourself will keep you moving from each phase on your journey. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Metellus? France?
Yeah, I'm here. So I think I need you to repeat that question one more time. I was so inspired by all that I totally forgot the question.
I believe the question was, and you're not the only one, when was that moment when you were just getting ready to throw in the towel? When you hit that moment.
I hit the wall all the time. We all hit the wall. And I think, again, that's one of the things that happens to everybody. We all hit walls. We all have struggles. Some days you feel like you cannot come back from them, but you go to sleep, you wake up and you figure it out. You get a new plan going. My keg is always half full. So I'm always gonna find a way to circumvent whatever it takes. There's gotta be a way. But I gotta tell you, when the pandemic hit, March 17th, and we were forced to close, for me, I thought that was it. I initially said, oh, there's nothing, it's out of my hands. I physically can't do anything. I was in the process of expanding and opening a second location at the time, and I was bone dry, no money, nowhere, nothing to sustain myself during the closing time. And so I figured, hey man, I probably need to file bankruptcy and get out of this as soon as possible, because I couldn't pay my bills. But then that's when we got wind of the PPP, and yeah, the PPP totally had its issues with it. And I gotta say, just like Melba mentioned, that I banked with a big bank, and then they didn't help me. And I went to Carver. I had a friend that worked at Carver. So She called me, and maybe 3 days later, I had my PPP. So I still bank with Carver. I'm gonna stay with Carver because being a small fish in a big pond don't help. But for us, for me, yeah, I after we were able to overcome that, after we found out we had to close on March 17th, and then we found out that the PPP was coming online. That's what saved us. Because without that, I don't know. I think I would have been forced to close, but I would probably try to figure out a way to stay open.
And with that note,
We
my
need you to
final
stay on.
yes, we do. And with that note, my final question is, I have plenty more questions to ask you, but we're doing such a great job here that we've only got 9 minutes left. And so my last question is, what message would you leave to the Manhattan College community for students or administrators, anyone who would be interested in owning a business? Final thoughts.
Well, I'm going to echo what Ms. Hill said. Bet on you. You will not let you down. The other thing I would say is make sure you surround yourself with a great team. You must have a great accountant. You must have a great lawyer, and also advisors. The only silly question is the one that's not asked. And make sure there is not a lot of demand. I mean, make sure there's lots of demand for whatever it is you want to supply. Know the difference between a business and a hobby. Okay, that's, because you want to make sure that this is something that you're definitely passionate about, but something that you can also make a living doing.
I will say, if I can leave you guys with anything in regards to business and mental health, it's no one's going to take care of you like you. They're just not. Sometimes we put ourselves in other people's hands and we hope that they will, but it doesn't work that way. It's the same way in business. Also, I hear a lot of times from younger generations and younger students, and even sometimes those are like, I'll never work a 9 to 5. Baby, put that pride to the side, because it's a 9 to 5 that funded me, that helped me fund to get to where I am. All the things that I learned that weren't from a monetary standpoint came from that 9 to 5. I worked for someone else to really, truly figure it out, those ins and those outs that I would not be able to learn on my own and see them firsthand to know what to do and what not to do. Have a support system. Definitely have a support system. You're not going to know it all. And it's okay. You could be the boss and you still don't know. Learn from those around you. Passion versus your purpose. You can be passionate about a lot of things and you can be good at a lot of things, but it may not be your purpose. Understand the difference between the two. And lastly, some of my greatest opportunities came from those that were not paid. Those non-paid opportunities is what helped me get in a position to get those big corporate checks. So just because it's not paid, do not downplay it. It may be your biggest break.
Ms. Hill?
Yes, I like to leave everyone with people do business with people they know, like, and trust. So relationships truly matter. And when you're feeling like you're up against that brick wall, if you become an entrepreneur, know that you will always be replenished, whether it's your heart, your mind, financially, there's always a season for replenishing that is coming your way. And lastly, your credit score. Ms. Malba, she mentioned access to capital, and we're hearing about the challenges with the PPP loans and just loans or line of credit during normal times. Instead of going out and buying video games or clothes or shoes or purses, I say put that money in the bank and build your credit score and make sure your credit is top notch. If you have to open a line of credit before you start your business or right when you start your business, as you're working a 9 to 5 or your part-time job, do so and build that line of credit. So when you go 100% into your business, you are not having some of the challenges that normal entrepreneurs face. And I'm sure all of us can go on and on about access to capital because it's a continuous fight. So make sure your money's right so you can continuously grow, and that'll put you 10 times steps ahead of most people that are trying to start a similar business than you are. Thank you so much.
France?
Okay, so Leash said passion, Melba said hobby. I'm kind of going to flip this one around a little bit. So I definitely say follow your passion. If it's your hobby, find a way to make money from it. Don't chase money. Don't chase money. It'll never work.
Well, I want to thank each and every one of you for participating. The conversation has been lively and it's been informative. And I would like to welcome each and every one of you to come visit Manhattan College, known as the Jaspers, whenever we get back to some normalcy. So in bidding you good night, I have one thing to say, and it says, you are always one choice away from changing your life. Good night, everybody.
Wait! Everybody just broke out.
I wasn't sure if you were going to say something.
I'm still here.
I wanted to thank you guys so much for participating. This was an amazing program. Hold on, let me stop recording.